So welcome everyone. Very glad to welcome you to this hackathon and expecting some really good results out of this exercise. So very quickly, my introduction. My name is Swati. I work with the business banking team in Emirates NBD. I take care of the digital transformation piece. I'll quickly just run into, I believe not everyone may be from the UAE, so I will give a quick backdrop of the economy so that then we can segue well into the challenge statement itself. So just help me a minute. I will share a very, broad outline of what we want to discuss. Ruby, just let me know when you're able to see my screen.
Yep, I can see that just fine.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I will limit my discussion mainly to the challenge, which is challenge number 2 for SMEs, which is SME Simplified. A very simple term, but I think when we go deep dive, we will understand that it involves a lot of work. So a little background in terms of what I will cover. So I will cover the macro landscape for UAE so that we are able to put into perspective what the challenge looks like and have some background as to what we are aiming to achieve out of this. The second, we will run right into the challenge statement, and I will be happy to take any questions or clarifications that you may seek. So, this is a very broad level segmentation, or if we may call a little super segmentation of the SME world in UAE. So, SME is a very broad term which is used for small and medium enterprises. If we put it into perspective, within the SMEs, we will have the likes of companies we can call very close to corporate. And when I say corporate, it is, the large conglomerates who operate around the world, those kind of corporates. And we may have, right ranging to the bottom of the pyramid, which is the smaller, which you can call even a freelancer. If I'm a freelancer, I want to do some sort of a business activity on my own, I am still covered under SME. So freelancer, gig economy kind of workers, those are the kind of profiles which fall at the bottom. So the reason I'm showing this breakup to you is because even though SME is a very largely broadly used term, sometimes the challenges are not all encompassing. So when we talk about the challenge, some of the challenges may not be really very relevant to the top of this pyramid, which is the medium enterprises. As I'm calling, this is something that may have different terminology across various themes that you may run into. But as a broad piece, what we have done is we have further segmented into medium, which is just the top around 10% of SMEs. And then there is a small portion, even though small as a term may appear to be small, but these are still the larger sort of companies with many employees, with huge turnovers and things like that. Then we have the upper micro SME, and micro, if you see, is more than 60 odd percent, almost touching 70% of the SME market, which is into micro economy. And when I say micro, these are the companies which have less than, on an average around 100 employees. If you go to the lower micro, these will have around 20 odd employees. Their turnovers will be much lesser. In the UAE, there is a certain definition for turnover as well for how we segregate these. So just giving you this overview so that we can put into perspective when we come to the challenge statement, we are able to understand what is it that we are really trying to cover. And if I may broadly just, put an overarching theme over here, the challenge that, that is faced by most of the SMEs when we say, generally we are speaking about this bottom 70%. And that is where the challenge comes because the small and medium are more established businesses. Their needs are well taken care of. They do not have the kind of challenges that we will talk more in detail when we talk about the life stages and things like that. I will just take a pause over here if anyone has any questions, and then I'll move on. I take it as no questions. Fairly simple, anyways, because this is just the background. Besides this, if I may just add a little more over here, why we care about this and why we are talking about SMEs, as one of the key themes that we want to really hack into, if I may use that word a little lightly. So the reason we care about this is because, again, in terms of the UAE market, even though it is a very small market from a volume perspective, from the numbers perspective, however, it is super competitive. When I say super competitive, means that there are more than 50 banks who are asking or working on a share of revenues from this set of customers, and that is the reason it is very important for us to be very mindful of what the needs of these customers may be and how well we can serve that. Giving a little bit of idea about what we do see as the major life stages for an SME. And again, when I talk about SMEs, this is now no more broad. There can be various stages. And as I said, there could be a startup business, which is just getting into foraying into the world of business. And at that time, their requirements may be very simple. Their capabilities also would be very limited. And as a function of these two criteria, what it means is that their needs are simple, but they are not even able to compete from a capability perspective with the more established businesses. What that means is, generally you will see that in the market there are banks who will ask for a minimum balance. They will ask for certain requirements to fulfill at the time you set up a business and you want to set up an account. Now, that is the point wherein the onboarding per se, or the starting of the relationship, is a key thing. It is a one single process which actually starts the relationship, and that is really why it is important. The second reason, again, why it sometimes is not overplayed from a bank perspective, is that this is just one step of the journey and this is the initial step. However, there are so many other touch points. This is just once which is done and dusted with. So sometimes the challenges are underplayed by the providers. However, from a company perspective, from a business perspective, this is the time when I need to put in more time into my business rather than the other things which are like setting up an account per se. So this is the time wherein onboarding plays a very key role. Even though I have touched upon this, what I would like to highlight is that as a bank and as this region also, there is a lot of work which is going on at the moment on this particular piece. There are a lot of digital initiatives which are already taken up, and this is something that we will not so much focus on as a part of this exercise. What is relevant for our discussion is the other two pieces, where in the so I'm using a conundrum over here. So SMEs, which is small and medium enterprises, and the life stages that we are calling are start, manage, and expand. So these are the typical life stages. We are focusing more on the M and E of SME in terms of the life stages that we want to focus on for this exercise. Just covering a little what manage may mean and what that life stage is typically for a business. So I've set up a business. Now I am ready to all roll out. It may sometimes need that, let's say, now I am ready with my product line. Now I am ready with my admin. I'm ready with my resource setup. And now I'm looking at more in terms of how I grow my business within my boundaries that I have set up as a business objective. And this is the time wherein I need support. And when I say I'm just putting myself in the shoes of my customers who are the SMEs. At this point in time, I need my bank to be just playing a support role. I should not be required to do a lot over there, and just use it as a tool to do my banking activities. And that is where my transactional pattern, my regular, we generally call it within banking parlance as remediation and maintenance of the account, those sort of things start playing a very key role. So when I say transactions, it can not only be just the financial transactions, it also includes transactions which are non-financial in nature, wherein the end goal may be financial. What that means is I can have my reconciliation of accounts, because accounting at this point in time, when I'm now an already set up business, accounting becomes a very key piece. I have to do some projections in terms of how I go into my quarter on quarter projections and things like that, how I manage my expenses, pay my staff, do my invoicing and things like that, and how I get paid myself. So these become like very key objectives from a business perspective in the life stage, which is managing. And this is where a lot of our established businesses will fall in. And this is where I would like you to also appreciate the fact that most of the businesses, when they start up, not everybody succeeds. It is a very high pressure and high stakes kind of a game. Many of the businesses do fail up in the startup years, between 1 and 3 years of their startup. And manage is the stage wherein we have established that this is a business which is running, which is not in the experimentation stage, if I may so call it. So this is the stage which is very, very critical. And that is the time wherein, as banking institutions, as financial institutions, we need to play a supporting role. The third stage, which is expand, this is where some of the very established and large businesses may come into picture, wherein now I am very comfortable with the way my business operations are running, the way my business itself is running, and what I want to do in future is expand it further. It can be geographical extension of my product line, it can be a product extension, and it can be an expansion in terms of the sheer scale of my business. So all of this comes into expansion, wherein as a business I'm very well set up, and now I'm looking at more of value add from a business perspective, and same is my expectation from my banking or financial partner. I'll just again take a pause over here so that if there are any clarifications, I can quickly take that.
If people do have questions, please use the raise your hand function and we can get to you as soon as we can.
I will take that as a no. Again, means it is simple. I will quickly just browse through this. This just is a slide wherein we do have a lot of visibility in terms of what UAE is doing for their SME community. It is a very critical community from a government perspective, from where the direction is. It is a very important community that we are focusing on as UAE leadership. And I will not go into the details of the initiatives. That there have been a lot of initiatives that have been taken up in the past just to support the SME community. Just in short, what it means is that it is really a critical and important business, or kind of uh, focus area for governments as well as the larger banks like ours in the community. Just very quickly going through a little anecdotal evidence over here, that we have heard a lot from customers, and this is coming mainly from the micro segment that I touched upon a little previously. So these are the customers wherein they face challenges, and they have said these things, that banking takes 5 to 10% of my business. And when we say 5 to 10%, when we think of it as bankers, it may not be a very large proportion. But if I'm not a banker and I'm actually starting my own business, or I'm managing a business, it is not even a job to be done for me. It is not an end objective for me. So if that starts taking 10% of my time, means it is eating away from my time that I could have put into the business itself. And that is the reason it is very helpful to hear these kind of evidences from the customer, which is coming right from the horse's mouth, just to understand why what we are aiming to do is important. So these customers do not have a lot of time at their hand. They don't have other resources also, like a lot of money to put in into their day-to-day activities. They they want to be, compliant with the regulatory authority, but they not be may not be aware of the entire landscape. So these are some of the things that they have said. These are some of the things which are the basis of, what we may develop at any given point in time, in terms of, taking care of the pain points that they really face. Now I will just jump into the challenge statement, and then we can move on to the FAQs. I believe most of you would have already seen what the challenge statement is, and I see that, you have probably jumped into fire saying that, okay, we can take a plunge into solving what you are aiming at. So the challenge statement is that SME, again, as a very wide word, but focusing on the key areas or the key proportion of that SME cut down. This is where we want to focus. We want to make banking simple for them. And that is where, again, in terms of just to give you a little more clarity in terms of thought, we have put together a few ideas which can drive you to, help us with how some creative, new, innovative solutions that can help resolve these pain points. So the challenge statement is to create a solution, and it can be a bunch of solutions. It can be a solution that can fit into an existing solution as a broad bank or whatever, but creating a solution that simplifies banking administration for SMEs. So through the voice of the customer, when you heard those statements, you must have seen a key theme that banking is something which is just a supporting function. It is not something, if I have to think of as a business owner, it is not something that we have to do. This is not something that we are looking for a medium. Even as personal banking, when we do banking as individuals, it is not generally that we like going to a bank, or we like going to open an account. We It is not a requirement and as an end state what one requires. And just putting an analogy for individual banking, just so that it is more palatable and understandable to all of us, because that is what we do on a day-to-day basis. Business banking is just a complex form of that banking. So in this scenario, what we do is that we are looking at creating something which is supporting, and which is not the admin in itself. When I say administration, it is not really underplaying what administration plays as a role for any business, but it is just that is an activity which takes time, which is not an end goal for a business. And that is the reason the challenge statement is that we want to make the banking administration for SMEs as simple as possible. And the three bullet points that we cover over here, this is just to give you a little deeper dive, and you can go beyond this also, but these are just kind of examples that you can focus on, that we want to give perhaps a better view of business while they spend less time on banking administration. So when I go to my let's say any sort of interaction channel, could be anything. It could be an RM, it could be a branch, it could be a digital channel. When I interact with my bank, what I'm looking at is how the bank can help me in terms of giving me a view of my business based on financial transactions, because businesses, end of the day, more than 98% of the businesses are for profitability and for making money. Very very small proportion is the non-profit organizations. So in that case, when I'm talking to my bank, what I'm looking at is that you give me a view on what my business is, how I can do better, how I can spend less time as well as energy, as well as resources, as well as money on the administration part. The second statement that we have put together is solutions that simplify management of transactions for SMEs, and to increase international business trades. So this is a very, very broad statement. And just to break it down for understanding sake, is that management of transactions in itself is a large piece. So, just being a business, being even though we are not a very highly taxed environment and things like that, but still we have VAT, for which I need to understand my cash flows, I need to understand my turnover, I need to file some sort of tax reports and things like that. So all of that is just requires a management of my transactions. This can be quite a daunting task, and most of the even medium and micro upper segment of customers, they may have to hire a full-time professional just to do this part of the admin for them, just to understand that we are our accounts are reconciled and they are working in a proper manner, we are filing our taxes, we have the right reports in place and things like that. So just an understanding on this statement. And trade is a much larger piece in itself, wherein I can be dealing with other countries, and what that brings into the picture is not just the rules and regulations of my own country, but also the rules and regulations that the other countries that I may be dealing with from a trade perspective, they come into picture. And that is the time there is a whole plethora of activities, things like when my goods are in transit, how do I insure them, how do I make sure that they are covered. Generally, I will get paid only after they are delivered and things like that. Those complications come into picture at this point in time. And how as a bank we can simplify that, even though there are solutions in the market, but how we can simplify that management is what the goal of current exercise is. And third, but not the last, because as I mentioned, these are just examples, can we do something to simplify the lending process for our SMEs? And rather, I would say more towards the micro SMEs, because SMEs generally, they have their, the papers in order. Because just to put it in a lighter manner, when you want to, as a business, when you want to, borrow money from a bank or from a financial institution, generally speaking, you need to give some sort of an evidence that you have the capability and the willingness to pay back. That is what the bank or a financial institution looks at. Now, to do that, there are current processes, but there are perhaps potential opportunities to make those processes much better and simpler, so that the SMEs have access to resources, specifically the funding from banks. And that is where we are looking at how we can do it better. I think these are the key statements, and that is all that I have from my perspective in terms of saying. And I will be very happy to clarify if there are any doubts.
Hi, that was absolutely fantastic. I really appreciated that overview, and I'm sure the hackers that are here do too, and so will the ones that are watching this from the recording that will be posted on Discord. I see we have one hand up.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Um, so just to understand, what is the expectation from the hackathon? Because either we need to uh, provide an ideation or ideas, present our ideas, or is it something like we need to provide the coding solution as well? What is expected from the hackathon?
Sure. So, Anna, would you like to take that answer from an end state perspective? Are we looking at getting the idea something that is a prototype, or are we looking at only the concept per se? Certainly, from my perspective, I would be very happy to see the end solution in working, but I'm sure not everything would be possible in a limited period of time. Vasif, Anna, if you want to add.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so the concept can be presented as a deck, but obviously if we have a prototype or even a working demo of your idea, that would be great, because just presenting and talking about concepts is not helpful. So if you can visualize it via prototype. And for SMEs, actually we have share the access to our API sandbox as well. So you can leverage some of these APIs which are available ready with substandard data as well. And then you could build a working demo of your idea. That would be actually more impactful rather than a deck or a simple presentation.
Yeah, I understand from my API perspective. I understand like what APIs we are going to use and how we are going to use. That is absolutely fine. But the only thing is about the UI part. So UI is basically is a complete solution, right? So the UI to display to the end users or how they are going to manage. So is that also should be a part of the solution?
Depends on the on your on your idea what you're trying to implement. For example, you have a reporting dashboard which aggregates the SMEs different accounts and presents a better view of how they can manage their financials with the bank. Then obviously a UI would make sense. But if you have something like a ML model which analyzes their transactions and predicts what upcoming transactions they can see for the next 2 years or where they need to put their focus in that case, a UI, might not be beneficial. In that case, you can showcase your, ML model and showcase what data you're analyzing and what your model is doing, and then show us the outputs. Yeah, so it depends on what we're actually trying to build. So if it's an app or a web app or a dashboard, then obviously having a UI is helpful, but certain things might not need a UI.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is kind of your last chance to give any live questions to Swati, who's very kindly been here. So unless we have any of those, I think that wraps up our webinar. So I just wanted to say thank you all for being here. It's been a very good session. Got lots of new information. It was a brilliant overview. Thank you very much, Swati. And yeah, I'm very excited to see you all next week. It'll be an
Thanks,
exciting hack,
Ruby.
and it'll be a great opportunity to see what solutions you guys come up with this week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anna, and thanks everybody who joined. Thanks, Ruby, for hosting this. Looking forward to the results. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you
you,
guys.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.